I think I've learned.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to CripChat, your weekly podcast for everything disability. Today, I have with me Jonathan Shar, Ibby,
Hello.
myself, David D, and a special guest, Richard Witbreuk, the chairman of National Advocacy of Transport in Network.
So I'll just clarify. I thank you very much for that, David. It's the National Inclusive Transport Advocacy Network. Welcome, Richard. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
All good, all good. So, Richard, tell us a bit about yourself and why you are interested in inclusive transport.
Yep, I live in Tasmania, and after living in Melbourne for about 20 so years, and came back just before COVID. And I'm interested in transport because professionally I'm a urban planner. I've always had an interest in transport, and recently into inclusive transport because I think public transport plays a significant role for all people in being active within the community.
Richard, I've got a question. Now, have you got a disability yourself, or?
Yes, I do. I have 2 prosthetic limbs above the knee from birth. So,
Okay. See, because usually a person that is in a role of something for disability, if they have the disability, usually is a better fit and know where people with disability come from.
yeah, we do fight for equality and better access for everybody. So yeah, and public transport is a significant part of that and the barriers that we face.
Yeah, thank you for that, David.
And I was just going to remind people, please like and share. And if you got any questions, please put it in the comment box. We'll get back to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David. So yeah, please comment and share. Richard, how does it feel when you hear about stories of disabilities being disadvantaged with the inaccessible transport options?
Yeah, sometimes it's really heartbreaking hearing some of those stories, like people being left on platforms, not being able to catch the trains, having inaccessible bus stops, so can't catch public transport. Very isolating. People want to engage and be part of the community. It disadvantages people from gaining, meaningful employment and being socially active. So it's really disappointing to hear some of those stories and the hardships people have to go through to just plan a journey.
Yeah, look, I understand the struggles, being a person with physical disability myself. Often when there's inaccessible transport around, it makes it difficult for, me to travel, and it ruins my day.
Yeah.
It does. Yep.
And it's a whole of journey approach as well that we look at. So from leaving your front door to the end of journey to your destination. So that's a significant part of the transport options and the barriers we face. So even though a cracked footpath can disrupt somebody catching public transport.
Exactly. It's always. Sorry, go ahead, David.
Also, there's a part of catching transport is the actual technology to see what time buses are coming or trains, or being able to sort of coordinate your way through. Some people have a disability where they can't see it, or which I'm one of, or can't hear it.
Yeah, I agree. And the information provision varies from state to state. I live in Tasmania, and sometimes there's bus timetables on the bus stops. Sometimes there isn't. Yes, you can call ahead to see when the bus is coming, but there's no real-time information either. So if the bus breaks down, we don't know. So you could be left stranded at bus stops as well. So there's a whole range of issues there, like the voice activated, like when the next bus is coming, which is available in some states but not all. Victoria on the on the train networks, for example, you can press the button and say next train is coming in on platform 1 in say 5 minutes. That doesn't happen in Tasmania, for argument's sake. So,
doesn't happen in New South Wales either.
Yeah, so there's a whole range. There's a whole range of different issues, and I suppose with NITAN there was recently we provided a submission into the modernisation of the transport disability standards, accessible transport, public transport. And so
there's always that research you got to do, you know, when you want to go out and have a good time, I guess, catch all those public transports out there.
Yeah.
So, look, you're the chair of NITAN. So, what exactly, or can you outline the work that you do at the National Inclusive Transport Advocacy Network?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're the national voice for people with disability. We're advocating for accessible public transport. We're looking to have influence in the design of public transport, so having a voice at the table. Part of that's also providing submissions to government, as outlined just then in terms of the modernisation of the DSAP standards, of which is still yet to land. So that was a review of some of the issues we just mentioned, like information provision, platforms, tram stops, bus stops, those type of things. There are some issues there. We've also done a submission into, people might be aware, the City of Ryde. They lodged for an exemption with the Australian Human Rights Commission regarding bus stops, because they realised that they were going to, not all their bus stops would make the standard by the end of last year. And the Human Rights Commission actually refused that application. So that was a significant win, if you like, for people with disability, because it shows that those standards are there, and they can, and they need to meet those standards. You just can't ignore them and hope they go away.
Yep.
We are people of the community, and an accessible bus stop isn't just a benefit for people with disability, probably benefits the entire community.
Is there anything stopping all of Australia being equal to each other in every state with transport and accessibility?
In regards to that, each state is obviously responsible for their own public transport systems.
Yeah. So you've got barriers here and there?
Yes. So some of it's poorly resourced. Some of it's they haven't even, no state was 100% compliant in meeting the standards by the end of last year. So, and they had 20 years to actually achieve those standards, and not one state satisfied all of the standards. So we have a long way to go. Hopefully the modernisation process is part of that, because we all aim to be able to catch public transport more conveniently, have information systems that provides that's accessible for all, better wayfinding, those type of issues. So, but there are still, and the compliance is significant because it's not very transparent at the moment. We're not 100% sure if all the standards and the reporting is consistent state by state. They might use different methodologies or interpretations. So yeah, we would like to see probably an independent body do independent audits and make those transparent, and the reasons why the say stakeholders aren't complying, and then put them on timeframes to make them comply.
Yeah, I guess when compared to other countries, Australia is a bit behind in its transport. Speaking of policy, how did it feel when transport was made a priority? Was made a policy priority of Australia disability strategy, and give us an insight into how it is being implemented.
It's significant in that because it's part of an effective, inclusive community public transport, and it's also part of integral to housing and service provision. And so federal government, it's all levels of government have a role to play, so federal, state and local. So it's a whole of government approach, but every department needs to take responsibility for it. It's not siphoned off to say just the disability minister or department. Every level of government and every department has a role to play. And it's not just government, it's also the service providers. They should be held accountable as well. And they just need to provide commitments, and not just commitments through budgets, but also facilitating better services for all.
Very important, of
Yeah.
course, of course.
Richard, do you think it'll be a good idea to have people with disability in a committee themselves testing the actual transport network and reporting things where they can be improved?
Well, ideally, would like to see some kind of co-design consultation with people with disability when public transport systems are looking for improvements. Consult with us. Don't come to us after they've implemented something and say, "Oh, look what we've done," and failed miserably on providing what could be a service because they've forgotten a certain sector. Talk to us, and we can help with the design. I don't think we will, put up too many barriers.
Yeah.
People with disabilities can usually provide good solutions to what people perceive as insurmountable problems. But
because what they think works doesn't usually work.
Or there's flaws in it. So, and I'm not saying everything's going to work straight away. It is a bit of a journey sometimes, but don't ignore it. The disability sector, once you can provide for the disability sector, you're usually going to provide for everybody in the community. It's going to have benefits for everybody, and and usually the benefits are long term, so you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, for argument's sake.
I guess so.
Interesting. Yeah. No, good stuff. Good stuff. It's interesting. There is a lot of work to be done. And look, when we look at our great mentors like John Bruce Roxon and also Graham Means, who are doing great work leading, disability inclusion. And so, are there lessons that can be learned from people like them about challenging the access barriers for people with disabilities to have equal access to public transport?
I think people like Graham and John have been probably groundbreaking. Advocacy plays a very big role in shaping ideas. If people have think it's just going to impact them, it's usually impacting somebody else as well. So just have to take a look on social media sometimes. Whilst people might think their issues have been ignored, there will be people in government or departments looking at what's being said if it's got a big enough following, and it will get brought up. So, yeah, advocacy plays a very strong role in shaping future decisions or bringing about an issue that people haven't thought about. Graham in particular is very strong with some of his thoughts, and he was actually privileged, I suppose, to take legal action in some cases that's brought about change. So, yeah, generally, good advocacy can bring change. It might not happen straight away, but it can bring change and people along with you.
Oh yeah, it will happen over time, man. Slowly get there.
So,
But I guess
so you advise people to be stubborn and keep going for it.
Yeah.
If your change doesn't happen.
If your issues, with not getting equal service or access because you're disabled, then yeah, fight, stick up for your rights. We have, right to public transport. We have rights to health and employment. So stand up.
We have rights to be equal.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's spot on. Yeah, but I don't think it's about being stubborn, but rather using our voice, to make change, to create change. For services that, are accessible to everyone. Very important. And so, Richard, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience? So, any final thoughts?
I suppose I haven't touched on. So, yeah, NITAN's been around for probably about 3 to 4 years. Runs under the auspices of the Australian Federation of Disabled Organisations.
Cool.
So we've got some peak bodies that are on the NITAN. We meet quarterly. And currently we're just beginning to look at the aviation green paper. And that has a section on disability and how the aviation sector could improve with that. And we all know that aviation flying creates many issues for people with disability. So, so that's kind of there that we focus on, I suppose, national transport issues that we can hopefully influence and create change for.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Richard, if you've got any topics in the future you want us to discuss on CripChat, you're more than welcome for us to put it on.
Yeah, right. I'd love to get some feedback. I understand wheelchair accessible taxis across the country is a bit of a problem.
Tell me about it.
Again, each state runs that program slightly differently. But fundamentally, I think there's fleet issues, enforcement issues, and it comes back again to that compliance. Whatever laws that they have need to be enforceable, and then make travelling attractive. Remove barriers. Don't put barriers in front of us. I think we should be beyond. We should be beyond having to wait 2 to 3 hours for a taxi to come. And
you know what? That was well said. Well said. I guess people are sick and tired of waiting a couple of hours just for a taxi to come. But anyway, it's something that we need to continue the conversations. So, for the audience out there, continue these conversations. We need to make them more accessible for everyone in the community. Thank you very much, Richard, for being on the show. And sharing your insights on accessible taxis and transport. It was such an honor to have you on the show. And you know what? Feel free to always, join into the group chat and have these conversations. And for the audience out there, like I mentioned before, it's good to continue these conversations. You'll be watching CripChat, your weekly podcast on everything disability. Join us next time as we talk about all things disability. Goodbye for now.
Cool, thank you for that.